Shalom, and welcome back to B'nai Noach Academy, Thoughts on Life. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and of course, most importantly, to share this insight and inspiration with friends and family. So this is a continuation to yesterday's class on the topic of being rich. Well, in the Talmud, there's a very interesting yet very curious statement, actually a perplexing one on the, if you look at it on the surface. And that is, the Talmud makes a statement and says, Rebbe, mechabed ashirim. Rebbe, that is Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, the one that is responsible and gets all the credit for the fact that we have the Talmud, because he is the one who compiled, and he was the editor-in-chief of the Mishnah, which is the basis of the Talmud, which is all of Jewish oral law. So he, says the Talmud, Rabbi, mechabed ashirim, he would show honor to rich people. Now, this is very perplexing, again, on the surface of it. What? Somebody of such high academic caliber, somebody of such great piety, should actually honor somebody because they have another couple of zeros in the bank? Does that seem to make sense? Obviously not. So what then does it mean? The statement obviously is true, but how do we explain it? How do we qualify it? Well, the answer is, if we know the background of Rebbe himself, of Rabbi Yehuda himself, if we have a perspective of his life, we'll better understand this. You see, Rabbi Yehuda was one of the richest Jews to ever live. In Jewish history, he is considered to be one of the richest Jews. Not only was he one of the richest Jews, but he had something very unique, as the Talmud spells out in another place in the Talmud. And that is that he had both, quote, riches, monetary riches, and Torah greatness, quote, on the same table, meaning he had them together. Usually they don't come together. The greatest of the scholars are not known to be rich, and usually typically rich people weren't known to be the greatest scholars. He, however, was blessed with having greatness in the financial sense and greatness in knowledge sense, knowledge of Torah, true knowledge. He, therefore, was able to use that, to utilize that for the benefit of all future generations. And as I mentioned before, he is basically the author of the Talmud. True, he didn't originate all the sayings, but he was the one, due to his vast wealth and due to his vast ability when it came to Torah knowledge, he was able to commission hundreds, if not thousands, of Torah scholars and pay their salaries. In other words, single-handedly support them, to convene all of them for years and years and years to discuss, to deliberate, and come to the conclusion of what is true, what is not true, what is clear, what is not clear, and record all of the Talmudical sayings. He, more than anyone else, appreciated the power. He appreciated the potential that one has when they have money. But at the same time, he appreciated something very, very, very deep, very strong. And that is that being rich is a tremendous challenge, or as we call it, a test from God. It may sound like a good test, but it's a difficult one. Some people, because they're rich, they become so stingy and they transform, they become bad people. Some people become very good people. Obviously, they pass the test and they do good with it. He understood how challenging it could be, not just from some book that he read it in, not just from some tradition that he heard from a rabbi or from a predecessor, but rather from his own personal experience. He understood how difficult it was, how challenging it could be to be rich, especially considering that it can get to your head and make you feel so arrogant. Thus, he appreciated the fact that God, when God chooses a person to give him a test, when God chooses a person to challenge them with something, he doesn't do so without first giving them tremendous resources, spiritual, emotional, psychological resources, in order to be able to properly deal with that challenge, to properly overcome that challenge, to properly pass that test. And it makes sense logically. Think about it. Would you send a soldier into combat without proper training, without the proper gear, without the proper weaponry? Obviously not, because you'd be sending them on a suicide mission. Obviously, you wouldn't do it, any sensible person. Certainly, God wouldn't give us a test. He wouldn't challenge us. He wouldn't send us, quote unquote, into battle without first providing us, without first arming us with everything we need for it. Now, the only thing is that that's left there is it's up to us to decide how to use that, or if we want to tap into it at all. That's where Rabbi Yehuda appreciated a rich person, whether they were givers, whether they were good people or not. But the fact that God chose them for this test, and he understood how difficult and challenging a test it could be, that in itself told him that, wow, these people have something special about them that only God knows. Maybe we don't see it, but therefore he respected them. He showed them honor, not for the few extra dollars that they had, because he had much more than they had, but rather for the fact that they were chosen for this test.